Hey, tribe. Welcome to Fit to Heal, the podcast dedicated to mental health and healing the African American community. Now, in this episode, we're talking healing generational wounds and nurturing resilience. So, join us while we explore the impact of intergenerational trauma, and we'll discuss strategies of healing, breaking free from trauma, and empowering our community. Now, here's the elephant in the room, tribe. It's PTSD. But what happens when it's caused from inside the home? That's how we really got to heal the community. Together, we'll understand PTSD, its causes, and effects on our daily life. We'll also focus on culturally sensitive approaches and building resilience. So let's prioritize mental health, challenge systematic barriers, and create safe spaces for healing conversations. Join us today on this transformative journey as we break the cycle of trauma in our community. Let's see who we've got on here tonight. Is it just me? Nope. We've got our favorite, Roslyn, your life coach. Hey, mama.
Hey, you. Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome.
everybody. You ready for a good show tonight?
I am. I really am. This is going to be a good one.
So it's interesting, right? PTSD is something that growing up, I only ever heard about with people in the military. People that have gone in extreme crisis. That's the only people that I've ever heard about PTSD. But what I'm learning is that it's very prominent in our community. Would you agree?
I definitely would agree. And definitely even more so than now, ever before, simply because of the world in which we live.
Hmm.
You know,
So then, to that, what is PTSD?
so post traumatic stress disorder is a um, impediment that has its symptoms that's related to some sort of intergenerational trauma, like you're speaking of, some sort of violence. It can be in some sort of discrimination. It could be trauma that's in our daily lives with our health, we just live in an trauma informed society. Every time we look at the TV or the news, the trauma and the tragedy of the things that we are getting to see nowadays, they would never have put on TV years ago. So we've crossed a barrier of discretion that we've never been before. And the problems that it has created based upon our sensitivity to it is hard to heal. It's hard to break back, pull back from.
And you ain't saying nothing but a word. I'm looking for this. I posted this, and I'm trying to see if I can share it before it clicks off. We're gonna see if I can get this done. What PTSD is,
Mm-hmm.
just to add on to what you've already said. And we're always promoting how, despite our trauma as a people, we can still continue to grow and continue to heal. But we have to first acknowledge whatever the trauma is that we are suffering from.
Right.
All right,
Agreed.
here we go. Here we go. Let me take it back. Boom. Waiting on the screen share to pop up. Do we see it yet?
Let's see.
I
Let's
see
see.
it there.
Oh, it's
There we
coming.
go.
All right.
Boom.
Yeah.
So this is my story today on Facebook about what PTSD actually is. And shameless plug, make sure you follow me, my mom, Fit Goddess Tribe, Alchemic Aura. We're always trying to send a little bit of motivation. But look, here, unwanted memories, negative self-image, hypervigilance,
I
emotional
saw
distress,
this. Yeah.
sense of threat, intrusive thoughts. You said it, isolation, avoidance. What, like, who does that sound like in the community? Does that sound like somebody that you know? Does that sound like somebody that you've been at any point in time in your life?
I know them. I am them. I see them. I treat them. This is the result of, like I said, an over sensitized but desensitized society. We're creating the trauma and then looking at the people who are traumatized like, what's wrong with you? Oh, that's not real. You're not really upset. You're not really, don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder. So,
That part.
it's it's a whole lot that we could do to avoid it, but we're conditioned since childhood that everything that we see on TV is actually happening. Everything that we're told is actually true. Everything that we see is actually what we're seeing, and there's nothing left to the imagination.
So
So,
let's break it down, right? Let's imagine that the viewers out there that we have watching have never heard of PTSD in terms of just a home life experience. What kind of specific traumatic experiences occur in the home, and how do they impact our mental health for someone who doesn't believe that it exists?
well, it could be something as simple as domestic violence, and then domestic violence. There's nothing simple or normal about it. However, people are in can be in a situation and something happens and someone emotionally breaks down or emotionally lashes out. It could be a child, an adult, you know, a teacher, a family member, anybody. And then what happens is everybody's like, what happened? Why did you freak out? Why did you yell? Why did you scream? Why did you break that mirror? Why did you rip that door off its hinges? And it is simply because people are traumatized and they have no way of expressing the trauma that they're experiencing. So yeah, we experience it in our homes all the time. We don't even understand. I don't feel like cooking dinner tonight. What? Mama slammed the cast iron skillet across the floor. She,
Mama threw her phone against the wall.
yeah. You know, these are
Why would she do that?
and I kind of don't like this word normalized because it's
Mhm.
overused and improperly used at times as well. But the triggers that we have, our jobs, um, our lack of communication within our families, the this disappointment that we have having to work and not being able to relax and sleep and eat well or exercise, just simple basic needs. The self-care is not there, and we're just walking around with this last image of something we saw in the news. Some
Ooh.
mother shot her babies or father killed his kids, and we're listening to this. We're not understanding that it plays a part. As a human being, you're seeing it whether you were there or not. You created the mental image in your mind
Right.
of seeing and knowing that this actually happened in this world, in this country that you live in, maybe even in your state. And then you think about, oh my gosh, here's where the trauma comes in. That could have been me. That could have been my
Mm.
kid. That could have been my mom. It starts coming closer and closer. And you realize that anybody could be, or you could be anybody's target. There's nothing to laugh at. It's just that the society is becoming more dense and sick mentally
Hmm.
and physically. And so when the psyche is under attack and the mental aspects and the emotional aspects become under attack, then there is nothing for the body and the mind to do except fight or flight. So what happens
That's
when we
right.
get afraid? We start creating more adrenaline. We start, the body's revving up for something that may or may never happen. But yeah, that and it's not always post traumatic. It can actually be current traumatic stress disorder that we're experiencing.
Correct.
But
It could be compound
yeah,
traumatic stress. It could be reoccurring. This is just the technical term that they use to describe it. Um, But I love that again because we're looking here at the National Institute of Health, Mental Health. So I'm highlighting for those of you that may be listening to this on podcast form later. I'm highlighting now on the screen an excerpt from the National Institute of Mental Health. So as my mother was saying, fear, right? The reason we end up having these stress responders is because fear is the response of stress or a response of stress, which my mom alluded to, the flight or fight response. There's got to be some kind of imminent or potential danger, but it's really just the mind thinking something like my mom said is going to happen. And when your central nervous system is just freaking out in such a manner, imagine how you process things. And again, it doesn't have to be as like just just something as significant as going to war and seeing whatever kind of carnage that people see. And again, to those that do, thank you for your service. But it can be something as simple as not understanding why your mom didn't give you candy on that day.
Mm-hmm. Well, we need to understand too that it is an anxiety disorder. Now, in the African American community, more people experience this trauma than anybody else because we have it still in our DNA. Our whole race was traumatized, and we know the trauma. Those who have of us who have lived it and experienced it, or know our history and our family history. But just being American in America and knowing our history, period, and how we were treated and how we're still being treated as a result, of the racism that exists here, we're in a constant state of trauma because now we're fearful of the very people that are expected to protect us. Number one, talking about the police, but then the
Right.
laws are not on our side. The banks and the bureaus are not on, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to see this progression of this particular race, and we're always under constant attack, whether it's perceived or whether it's subliminal.
And
So,
see, I love that you put that because that's why the title of the show for today is Healing Generational Wounds. As women, as the leaders of the nation, right? Because we carry all of the nation within us. That means when I was invented, right? When my mom was invented, I was already in her uterus, even though she was in the uterus of my grandmother, who was probably going through, as my great grandfather, my mother's father, was an enslaved person. So I can imagine what lessons and theories and facts were bestowed upon those two women while I was still in utero and by descent, right? Because I have notebooks where I write down what my kids did when they were in utero, and you can see them still doing those things now that they're outside. It's the cycle. It's the generation. Even though I didn't experience enslavement, I feel it.
you feel it exactly, and that makes it just as real as if you had. That's why I'm saying that it's not normal, but it's normal. It's normal for a survivor of some sort of traumatic, maybe sexual experience or mental or emotional, physical experience where they were hurt to to exhibit feelings of anxiety and fear and stress related illnesses because there were remnants of that abuse or that trauma. Uh, when we practice emotional trauma healing, it is very natural for people to relive that all over again, even though we don't go as deep as a psychologist or psychiatrist. We're just coaching, life coaching, and trying to make people understand what's going on physically with them as a result of what's going on with them mentally. And if there's any kind of domestic violence or some kind of brutality, um, they don't even know that they're having the symptoms.
Right. Hey, Mom, we got somebody backstage. I think this is your friend. You want to introduce her today?
So, which one? Are we talking about Fran?
Yes, ma'am. We talking about Fran. Let's go ahead and bring her to the stage. Tell the
Fran.
people who she is. We got somebody phenomenal coming to the stage, y'all.
Oh, my friend Fran, guys, you gotta. Oh my God, this woman is incredible. So, where are you? I'm trying to see. There she is.
Hi,
She's
y'all.
driving.
Yeah, so I'm thankful to have this stand and this mount in my vehicle that allows me to still interact and be safe. But yes,
Good.
thank you all for having me tonight. When Rob
Welcome.
invited me to be a part of it, I was like, okay, cool, I can pop in for a little bit.
I
So
like
So,
it.
Fran is Fran Futrell. She is the CEO and owner of Your Mental Health Matters. As you can see,
yeah,
she's wearing her T-shirt, and she is a. Tell us what you do, Fran, if
I
you would.
sure I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been working in the field probably about this year. I think makes will make 13 years that I've actually been in the field, but I've been licensed for 5 years, and of those 5 years, I have I've been in business solo for myself through my practice, Your Mental Health Matters, for a year. This month makes it a year that I've been flying solo. One of my specialties is actually focused in the area of grief and loss. While I do help people address challenges related to anxiety and trauma and depression and some of these other mental health challenges that we see people in our community dealing with, and just people in general, it's so layered. When you look at some of the challenges that we deal with in our emotional and mental space, you can understand why people experience some of the things that they experience in their bodies, because mentally and emotionally there are so many layers. I'm listening to you all talk about generational things being imprinted on us genetically, and so having to contend with that, but also having to consistently reframe because of all the things that are taking place in the world. you
Mhm.
definitely um, you definitely got to take into consideration just all the things. Like, it's just so much. But I love what I do. I love helping people with putting things into perspective and being able to help them to see that they don't have to give up all their power. Like, they can reclaim
Right.
some of their power by just having tools,
Yeah.
understanding where stuff comes from.
Resources. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
understanding.
thank you for being there to provide those resources for us.
I,
We need to know that you guys, people need to know that there is help.
yes,
And
absolutely.
you saying that your mental health matters. Your
It's a
mental health is
message
your,
in
yeah.
the yes. There's that. This is very intentionally titled. The
Mhm.
practice is very much it's multi-layered. It's a multi-layered thing to have this as the business name, but also it's a message to remind people that we got to take care of ourselves in that way. All the parts of who we are matter, and if one is out of alignment, so very well, so might other pieces be. It's hard for one piece to be out of alignment and
Mhm.
was
Everything else.
and
Yeah.
everything else is holding steady. It sounds good, but and we like
So
to keep
work your way.
hearing it like that, but
Hmm.
yeah, no, that's typically not how it's working.
So, Fran, you wrote a book
I
called
did.
um,
Counseling is not
Counseling is Not a Four-Letter Word.
yes,
Ooh.
counseling is not a cuss word.
It's not a cuss word. That's right.
Yeah, I wrote that because I wanted people to be very comfortable with addressing or just kind of really putting some of the myths out there, dispelling some of the stuff that people have believed about counseling, what it is, what it's not, some of the things that underlie what people believe about counseling that may or may not be true, depending on a person's experience. All of that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Like, it was stuff in there that I personally had dealt with. So, like, like, I'm just gonna be real. Like, some of
Yeah.
that stuff, thank you. Some of that stuff is not like just somebody else. I wrote
Hmm.
that book from my own
Own
it comes
experience.
from my own personal
Mm.
experience of things that I heard. As a matter of fact, if you read the introduction or the foreword of the book, you'll see a story about me and my dad having a conversation one day, and he asked me, was I trying to psychologize him? First of all, sir, that is not a word.
That's not a word. That is not a word. That is not a real thing. I
Talk
don't know how to do that.
Apologize.
Let's talk about that. We're not gonna find that word in the dictionary, okay, sir?
Not
But
even
I'm
in the
sorry.
erotic
I
dictionary.
apologize. I recycle it.
yeah, but that goes to even the ideas that we have about conversation, just having conversations, and like going a little bit further, asking a few more questions.
Right.
Okay, so hold on, right there. That is the problem I find in the community. Period. Is
Mhm,
the inability, one, to receive a question being asked without frustration, and then two, the ability to ask a question, like
absolutely,
just ask a question. In terms of healing generational
ma'am.
anything, how do we get us? Because as a mother, I've been complimented because I ask for help, which I always tell people that is the weirdest thank you, but no, that's not. That's like a standard of living. You should be asking for help when necessary.
But
Hmm.
I think that that goes to, I think that there's some generational pieces that we have to look at with regard to that, as people of color, black people, anybody that's got our complexion or darker. We had to be the people that were strong. We couldn't show our emotions. We couldn't show how we
Yes.
were feeling. Like it could be a beating. It could be somebody's life is over because they asked a question, because they ask for help, or
Hmm.
because so those things, you have to just be strong. That's
Yes.
that mentality that you just got to be strong, and you just got to make it work, and you just got to keep going. And so the
Right.
asking of the questions is not a thing of, is not seen as a thing of beauty, it's not seen as a thing of strength, when in all
Right.
actuality,
It
it
is.
we grow the more that we ask questions, the more vulnerable, as you're noting here, vulnerability and strength. It is there's strength in vulnerability.
Hmm.
Like that, and that means also too that we have some work to do with continuing to create safe spaces for people to be vulnerable in, because
Thank
some
you.
people won't do it because they don't feel like somebody is really going to be accepting of what
That's
they
right.
say or how they show up or what they bring or the way they exercise their gifts, particularly if it's not mainstream or status quo. Like,
Well, is there any way that we could uh share where you are, what you do, how to purchase your book, and all of those types of things? Can we
absolutely. So
find you?
as far
I know
as
you got to go, so I'm trying to get it before you pull out.
I got in here now, Rosalind, and I'm joining the conversation. um,
Okay.
you can, anybody who wants to follow me on social media platforms, you can follow YM at YMHMLLC at YMHMLLC on Instagram and on Facebook. There's a lot of good content. I do the most of the content on Facebook. That's where the community is that engages and interacts the most. We
Okay.
also have a YouTube page as well, Your
Okay.
Mental Health Matters LLC, and you'll see the logo when you go up there. And there's content there, videos and things. There's actually some pretty, like, I'm blessed to say that. Hey, that was a good, give us some good downloads of stuff on YouTube. Like, y'all might want to go check those out, because like like in the moment drops from God. I was like, oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yes. Some of those are not on Facebook. They're not on
Right.
Instagram. So
Okay.
definitely check out the YouTube page.
I
But
love it.
also, yes, as far as the book and purchasing the book, they can just email me, and I can send them the PayPal link if they wanted
Okay.
to order the book. So the
What's your
email
email?
is info@ymhm.org. Info@ymhm.org.
Awesome.
Yep, and they can just email me, and I'll make sure I take care of them, getting them their book.
I
Um,
know you will take care of them and get them their book, and we are so thankful that you're here. Now, what city are you located?
I'm actually located in Suffolk right now. The services that I provide, as far as the therapy and counseling services, are provided exclusively telehealth. But my goal is to transition into a brick and mortar space so people can actually come in person for their therapy sessions and see me that
Awesome.
way. But also, I do host mental health educate. That's it. Mental health educational sessions for businesses, for gatherings, for if you wanted me to do a family. This past Saturday, I was actually did an educational session for a company who uh interestingly enough, they work with our babies. Bright Dreams Learning Center. I was actually able to do an educational session for them, empowering them to know their why as they are working with our babies. Because at
Awesome.
the very beginning, they need guidance for how they can overcome some of those things that have been imprinted. And if they are going to be working with the babies, then they need it first. So I was able to go and do a session with them, which was really empowering to even to me. So I do offer those types of trainings and sessions for businesses and ministries and just beyond. So
Awesome.
I'm finding that I'm really loving doing the educational sessions. Uh, I'm almost saying more than counseling, but I'm taking my time with that because I still.
Okay.
But yeah, so all the
Wow.
information is there for how you can contact contact us if those are services that could be helpful to you. As far as
Okay.
the counseling piece is concerned, if there's people that's interested in um, utilizing insurance to help with the cost of their services, that's something that um, we also provide as well. So our
Okay.
major companies like Aetna, Anthem, TRICARE.
Okay.
Very nice. So it
So,
sounds like all the ones that Medicaid takes
so here's
or
the
provides.
I'm in process. That's in progress. So
Okay.
stuff is backed up now. I put
Mm-hmm.
it in a while ago, but it's the services are with everything getting approved and everything coming back into alignment as far as like after COVID
Awesome.
and them getting themselves together with how they handle stuff administratively. What I've come to learn is that there's like a backlog for people who put
Gotcha.
applications to as providers to be able to provide services for some people who have Medicaid and other insurances. So yeah.
Well, that opens up a whole nother ball of wax. Some people don't accept it. So I'm just grateful that you have all the things in place that help the majority of the people with the
Yeah,
problems.
yeah, I'm grateful.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to be able to provide it, and I'm thankful for you all hosting this space where people can get more information about what is available to them. Sometimes
That's,
people are in the dark; they just don't know, and they don't
Yeah.
know that they don't know. Like
Yeah.
that's been my story. Like some stuff I didn't know that I didn't know it until I knew that I didn't
I didn't know that was a thing. Now I know that it's not. Oh, okay. Now
know.
we do new stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, okay, as
it's
a practitioner, because my mom and I speak from how we notice the world in our arenas, but your arena is specifically mental health.
hmm
So, between your clients and everything that you studied, can you tell the people what PTSD, especially in our community, really looks like?
okay. So in a practical way, most of the time when we're looking at traumatic, when we classify something as traumatic, it is exposure to something that brought harm to yourself or you witnessed harm to another person in the form of some type of abuse or maybe being witness to someone passing away, whether that's by violent means or whether it's by there it wasn't a violent ending for that person, it was death though and you witnessed it. Being the victim of a crime such as someone having someone break into their home or being robbed or anything like that, those types of, even around birth, like women having complications around the birth space, like within the pregnancy, like during the pregnancy,
Yeah.
people who have had like miscarriages or had stillbirths. So that's still connected to being witness to or actually having experienced some type of harm or threat of harm to yourself or another person, that significantly impacts the way that you function on a day-to-day basis. So those people may deal with things like intrusive thoughts, where they can't stop thinking about what they witnessed or what they experienced. It keeps playing over and over again for them long after the occurrence has taken place. It interrupts sleep. It looks like night terrors. It looks like nightmares. It looks like avoidance of anything that would remind them of that event that has happened in their lives. It looks like avoiding going places, going down a certain street, or certain smells, or not watching certain things, or not listening to certain music, or not being able to sleep in a certain position.
Mm-hmm.
We need might not even think of that as traumatic, but not even being able to sleep in a certain position because
Wow.
it's a reminder of maybe a traumatic event sexually that was committed against that person. So even
Absolutely.
something as that may
Mm.
be seemingly small to another person, the position that somebody sleeps in, certain touches.
You just made it so deep. Like, yeah, I mean,
That
as
could
a
be
woman
anything,
that
right?
yeah, right. Like it could be legit anything. And as a
Anything.
woman that is consistently healing herself as a lead by example, right? That's what the Fit Goddess Tribe does. That's why we're on YouTube, because we saw as a community this is where people are. So we're just going to bring the information to where you are,
Mhm.
as opposed to trying to do something else. But
Absolutely.
as a woman who's healing herself consistently,
Hmm.
it's always the little things. I'm like, oh my God, or
Yeah.
especially in dating men. And like you'll be like, okay, I didn't know that what you said had so much effect on me. Please
Mhm.
bear with me while I cry, because you just brought up so much that
Yeah.
I didn't even know that I wasn't even thinking about, because I
Yeah.
thought I had gotten over it until you said what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little triggers.
Small things. It's small things that can be reminders, and it really very often sometimes when those triggers can take the person back to the moment that that particular thing happened for them. So it's things like that, or numbness. Sometimes there's an
Hmm.
inability to recall certain parts of the event that was traumatic because your brain, like sometimes people treat that as like a negative thing that people can't remember some of the things, but our brains, the way that we're wired, we're blessed to be wired in such a way that our bodies and our brains will allow us to feel safe before we expose certain things. I've worked with people, some people I've worked with for a few years, and we just got certain pieces that were traumatic for them because they just didn't recall it. But when they
Yeah.
got to that safe place where they understood, their brain unlocked it for them. They could
Right.
Well, let me. Well, now
release
that you,
do it, and they
I'm
could work
sorry.
too. Yeah.
I just want to ask you this because I mean, we all have background in psychology and some counseling and things like that, but there's this type of, I guess it's called therapy. It may not be a therapy at all. It's called some kind of restructuring, cognitive restructuring.
Restructuring or
Yeah,
Mhm.
reframe. Yeah.
yeah, where they try to make sense of what you're dealing
Right.
with.
It's cognitive restructuring, and it can be a part of different modalities for therapy, but
Mhm.
it's I utilize it a lot in within the framework of cognitive behavioral therapy and looking at how our cognitions affect our behaviors, affect our emotions, and it's like this cycle that they kind of like.
Wait. Time out. Time out. The collegiate women just understood you. I know what you're saying, right? But we are also on YouTube. Please say that again
Sure.
so that
So
everybody understands.
what's going on in our minds,
Mhm.
we can understand what's going on in our minds. We can understand what's going on in our hearts, so we can understand why we do what we do. And it's all in a cycle, in a circle.
Oh, it's a circle. It's a
Well,
cycle.
because sometimes it's kind of like we can have a tendency to think of things very in a very linear way, but
Hmm.
sometimes there's certain you may certain something pops off, a situation happens, you have thoughts about that thing, and then you have an emotional experience, and then you often have behaviors. But sometimes we have a point where uh we have a point where we kind of vacillate between the emotional piece and what we thinking. And so we kind of go back and forth between what we thinking and what we feeling before we actually engage in a behavior. Or we have the situation, the thoughts, the emotion, the behavior, and then we go back to the situation and look at it again, and then we go back to the thoughts and we try to figure out it. Then we go back to, and then the way that we behaved or the way that we thought triggered off another emotional experience. So we kind of have like, it can be like a zigzag ping pong, or it can be circular, be linear, but it can be all of it depending on the situation, until that person learns how to regulate. Though when you learn how to regulate and understand what's happening with you, then you can have like a more linear experience where a situation may happen. You have those thoughts about what's going on. You process thoughts and you reframe them in that moment so you can have a different emotional response to the thoughts. If there's structuring of thoughts in that moment, then the behavioral outcome is very likely not going to be one that is advantageous to you. Very likely something that's harmful to you.
What you said in a very doctoral way is that I think, therefore I am. So as I learn to change my thoughts, my words and actions will follow.
As a man thinks in his heart, so is he.
Okay.
You think reflects, whatever you're thinking is reflected by your behaviors. It's reflected by how you express your emotional state.
Wow. Correct. This is when we take it back to hip hop, when we used to say word is bond, right? We done lost that because the word is bond to nothing now. We just say out here, what's the song, Mama, talking loud and saying nothing?
Saying nothing.
Ain't that something? So I was just having a conversation with somebody about that kind of stuff earlier. Like, everybody got a mic, but everybody ain't got something that's
to say.
Nothing worthy.
So, to say.
Yes.
How do you talked first about that alignment, right? And again, collegiate women on the chat understand how you, even if you don't want to, even if you don't like it, how you get yourself back into alignment, how you realize you're out of alignment and you got to get back in. But for those people that may have watched this show, shared this show, watched any of our other shows, talked to you and realize, oh snap, I'm the person that she's talking about. Now, for me, every time I have those, well, in the beginning, when I had those realizations, it was like major freak out mode. Like, oh snap, there's something wrong with me. And then it can go one of two ways, right? You can spiral into this woe is me, or you can start to like get motivated and start to order your steps. Right. How can we encourage those watching this show today, knowing that PTSD is a thing that may have happened to them and they don't even realize because they are minimizing their trauma? How can we help them start to order their steps and not panic?
Okay, so one of the things that I would say right off the bat is sometimes we can be fearful of what the process of like really diving in and dealing with our challenges and traumas looks like. We think that if we really dive in, who's gonna help me get out? Your therapist will help you get out. Your therapist will help you process what's going on and happening. And also, if you're in that space, know that that's a part of your overcoming, and that's a part of your process of being better and operating in a healthier way and being healed. Like, that's a part of it. It'll be messy first. It's gonna be messy at first, but if you're willing to go through the messy part, you can even see the beauty in the messy part, because at least you get to see everything that's there. Because sometimes we don't like the mess because like, oh man, it's messy, we got to clean it up. Okay, so at least you know what's in there,
right?
Like the kid, like your pocketbook. You try to find something in your pocketbook, and you like, yo, so much stuff in here. Like, I don't even want to get this stuff out.
Good analogy.
Because my lips is chapped and I can't go in this place and I ain't got my lips right. Listen, we can't do it. So what do we have to end up doing sometimes? Dumping the whole bag out. Find that one piece.
And then we can oh, I love that because now we can address the rest of the stuff. Some of it is trash in the bag that we want to throw away.
Man, you get to get rid of the other stuff that's not serving you that was in the bag too. Yes,
Now,
you get to see all of the stuff. You got to look at the trash to put it in the trash.
what is it called? Because a lot of our people go through this within trauma where we hold on to any kind of relationship entirely too long. But there's it's like the when you stand in line and you've been waiting for 30 minutes and you're like, okay, I'll wait 30 more minutes because I've already waited 30 minutes. What's the term for that? And how do we boost people's self-esteem to be like, hey, you don't like it. The fact that you don't like it is enough to stop doing it.
Well, I'm not quite sure of what that term is called, but I will say that there is a determination, there is an intentionality, there is an endurance that is necessary for you to do that type of work. Like, in order for you to stand there, to keep standing there, you're going to have to be patient with yourself, with the process, with whoever's helping you, with people that don't understand why you chose to do what you chose to do. Not seeing the outcome yet that you desire to see is going to take intentionality, it's going to take patience, and it's going to take grace toward yourself as you walk in the world. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Like, and it's not, one of the things too is that and I can speak from personal experience on this as well. Like, process, I don't like process. Like, I didn't realize that I didn't until I began to address some things in a meaningful way for myself. I didn't know I didn't like process. Like, and like, I really didn't have an understanding of how much I didn't like having to wait, having to see stuff through, having to walk it out, having it be painful, having to have people not understand where I was or understand me not understanding all the pieces that I was discovering about myself, stuff that I liked and stuff that I didn't care too much for, because that, that's another reason why people don't want to dive in. Like, what am I gonna find that I don't like? I mean, but at the end of the day, you're gonna
Then what you gonna do about it?
There's treasure there too. Like, you might find you don't like, but anybody who found diamonds, they didn't find them on the surface, and they didn't find it in the green pastures. They found it in coal.
In the bottom of that pocketbook, looking for the chapstick.
Your hands gonna be dirty. You're gonna have to get your hands dirty. You're gonna have to get your hands dirty to be the best version of yourself. You're gonna have to get your hands dirty.
So then, okay.
I got one question.
Go ahead, Mama.
Because I think we skipped something, and that is, I don't say we skipped it, but we didn't address how, I mean, we're talking about healing and recovering, but some people don't know how to identify their trauma. They don't even know that they're being have been traumatized. And so let's address some of these things, like being easily upset or being easily angered, being overly alert about things, hypervigilant, not being able to sleep.
Those are some pieces. So
irritability.
Anybody who's listening to you name off some of those things, those are all ways, but sometimes we don't know or realize it until somebody brings it to our attention. So what you're listing off are things that people can pay attention to. Easily annoyed by certain things, or easy to cry, or hypervigilant. That's what that is. You always looking around, you locking the doors, you checking it 10 times before you go to sleep. Or you can't go to sleep. You haven't had a good night's sleep in 10 years.
Sheesh.
You just thought that was a part of you working. So there's
something. So that was one of the reasons why I said we got to be able to make people know
of that. Those are some, even how you speak. People may say often to you, you're talking really loudly. Maybe that's a result of being mistreated or abused in some way where people didn't listen to you. So now you talk loud and you make sure everybody hears what you have to say.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like that.
Yeah, that can be a result of a traumatic experience.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I not able to concentrate.
Difficulties with memory,
Mhm.
difficulties with being able to concentrate. Those all can be things that are connected to traumatic experience.
Aggressive behavior.
Yes, all often ready just at the drop of a dime, ready to
Mhm.
go. I mean, like anything. They rolled over your foot by accident, or they bumped the back of your ankle or something at the grocery store, and you ready to go to war. Like it's
With the
World War II. And
AK-47.
It's over and done with.
somebody got to come and get you because
Yeah.
you got to let them have everything you got, and you get ready to go to jail.
Right. So, I'm gonna put this one back up here because there's strength and vulnerability, right? The vulnerability and strength. Fit Guys Tribe talks about it often about how we connect with our tribe members. We're often very open, but it's very natural for us because we've gone through that part of trauma where we know that that is actually healing to speak on it and find that community in it.
Right.
Um, but what kind of things would you share with the people watching that would encourage them to find their own strength in being vulnerable with whomever's closest to them? Like, not saying you got to go to the nearest stranger now and start sharing all your business, but like, find your friend and say, I really need to talk.
How about this? Some people need to start with a stranger because they don't have people around
Mm.
them to trust. So
How
until
about
they
that?
can build up their confidence enough to engage with the people that are closest to them, because sometimes those are the people that have inflicted the harm.
True
Maybe
indeed. So,
intentionally, but it still happened. And so they don't have those people don't exist for them. They may have to start with a counselor first. They may have to start with a somebody in the grocery store line. Why are you telling them all your business? Because I trust them better than I trust the people that's close to me. They
Yeah.
actually
Lord,
stood there and listened. No judgment. They're gonna walk away. They're not gonna know my name. I didn't give them no identifying information, but it was a
right.
safe space because that person created that safe space for them. Some of us need to start with somebody that don't know nothing about us.
Yeah.
It's totally
Mm.
unbiased,
Yeah.
totally objective.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that because
I
that
do.
is like a residual thing in our community. Well, I can't talk to a stranger because I got family. Da, da. Well, here's your answer to that.
Right?
Sometimes you can't talk to family because family is the one, and they don't want to hear about it because they're going to make
They
you
got
feel bad because
right.
they
They
were in the
get
wrong.
themselves. If you bring it to their attention that some of the things that you're dealing with, then it's going to cause them to have to look at some of the things and the ways that they behaved and look at how maybe, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they inflicted harm on you. So
Yeah.
they're not a safe place for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then some of them still later down the line won't be a safe place for you because they haven't started doing their own work. Some of them never will. So they will
Right.
never be that safe place for you. And I have found this to be true. There is village matters, community matters, and that's why village is so important. Now, maybe they come around and there's an opportunity for you to share with them, for you to talk with them. And in those cases where you feel safe to do so, then you do that. But if you don't, then you don't. You
Right.
need community, and then you have to. Sometimes we are in a space in a time where we have to create our community, and um as we are as we are healing and doing the things that we need to do for ourselves, then they will come. The people that we need in our space will come.
Okay.
The people that we need, they'll come. They'll show up.
Well, I
We
got.
learned that when we watched Lion King, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mhm. I
Yep.
got to ask. I guess I'm gonna ask both of you because we're talking about breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma, and then we have traumas that are genetic. You know,
Mhm.
a woman could have been traumatized having a child conceived through rape, right? And then the child comes and the child is experiencing this trauma and this she's anxious all the time and you don't understand why. So there
Hmm.
are other issues that need addressing too on an intergenerational level. And we need to, have access to treatments for families.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you, have you found that families come to be treated as an entire family?
Some. I
Okay.
actually had have had an experience recently with working with a family where it was uh a young lady, her mother, and her two of her aunts. They
Mhm.
Oh,
started
wow.
off strong, and then there was a session where it was just the young lady and her mom. Her mom had a really hard time facing some of the things, like really being receptive of what was being said,
Mhm.
because it was how she was reading and perceiving the information that was being shared that didn't allow her to receive, so that she could
Mhm.
make the changes for herself. And she said, I may need to just do some stuff for myself. And you know what I said?
Do it then.
The best, because that
Mhm.
might be the best route for you for right now. Because
Mhm.
sometimes people have a hard time seeing themselves. They become so used to projecting onto other people and like blaming other people for what they're experiencing, that
That
they
they
don't
want to let them do.
some of their own behaviors are harmful, even if they were hurt. That doesn't take away from the fact that your behaviors still hurt somebody else. It
Right.
doesn't
Right.
minimize your experience, but it does serve you well and the people that are in your family. If y'all are working toward a joint healing of your family, it does help for you to acknowledge, hey, that might actually be a thing.
Mhm.
But if you're not willing, you're not ready to do that, then that can
Mhm.
go south very quickly. So very likely it's looking like I'm going to just be continuing with the young lady and her aunts.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
But that's great anyway. It's still great.
Right. And I applauded them. Like I
Yeah.
gave them so many kudos at the beginning. I said, do y'all know how many people can't do this? This is
Yeah.
hard.
Right.
This is hard.
Beautiful.
Like yeah, our stuff, everybody's stuff gonna get put on Front Street at some point.
Right. You got to act. What's done in the dark will come to the light.
Yeah.
Gonna come. It's gonna come to the light. It's gonna,
Yeah.
but I'm thankful for the grace and the mercy of God that He gives us to walk through these challenges and overcome them and not allow them to be things that overshadow us for the rest of our lives. They don't have to be things that overshadow us for the rest of our lives. They
Mhm.
don't have to be walls that we hide behind anymore. We can
Mhm.
be healed from it if we can say
Mm.
what's going on.
Yeah, we face it. I love that.
Yeah.
We can
Uh,
Yeah.
face
so, what strategies can we implement to break the cycle of intergenerational trauma and build resilience within our homes and communities?
one of the things that I would say is to for those who are caregivers, particularly of younger children, like if it's a younger family, if it's parents and children, I would encourage the parents to be open to listening to their children and create spaces for them to talk without them bashing them. Because sometimes they miss stuff that could have been helpful for them to know. And it's
Mhm.
in some instances it's like it's too late because that child is no longer here.
Mhm.
Person
Mhm.
need to have a place. And the parents like, I didn't even know there was no space created for you to know. So
Mhm.
Right.
making it so that they can ask questions. You don't have
Yeah.
to be disrespectful. Make sure, I mean, set the ground rules. Here's how we're gonna talk to each other. Like,
Right.
here's what we're gonna do. We can speak to each other without yelling. We can speak, but we're gonna listen to each other. We're gonna make space. Even if we don't agree, we're gonna listen. So
Love
set
it.
ground rules for conversations before you have them. Eating dinner around the table.
I was just gonna say it's something as simple as eating dinner. Yeah.
like putting everybody putting their phones in a room apart from where you eat.
Yeah.
Everybody like having dinner together.
Full. Give me your full
Undivided attention.
undivided attention.
Right. But we're all giving each other
Right.
our full undivided attention.
Exactly.
Nobody has their devices.
Yes.
Parents
Right.
and because
That's right.
we don't have that do as I say, not as I do generation. No,
No.
they're gonna hold you to the fire every single time. Well, you saying this, but you doing that. You want
Correct.
Right.
and you want them to listen to you. That's
Yeah.
Correct. We must model that. You cannot, as one of the greatest things my children have ever said to me is that I know you were going to do it because you said that you was going to do it.
right.
Yeah.
So
What
Thank
is
you.
bond?
follow through. You follow through on what you're requiring them to do. So if
That's
you're
right.
gonna have family time, you be present, just like you're asking them to be present.
Exactly.
Ask them
And
about
then,
what they enjoy doing together. Everything ain't got to be a serious like conversation type. Start with something fun.
yeah,
Start with a game. And as the
yeah.
time is going on, just kind of slip little stuff in there. See where their minds are with things.
Hmm.
And I
And
love that you said that. The last show that we had, we were asking the brothers how we could assist them with their mental health. And a lot of what they said in terms of reframing what fatherhood looks like, especially with so many fathers outside of the home, a lot of them lend themselves to playing games. And I'm like, do you understand that mentally play is the best way that we learn?
it is like um you can engage people engage better when their mind is free. And your mind
Hmm.
is free when you playing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why people should do it more often, especially adults. Like we used to have you all came over before and we had the couples night, game night, and you and your husband came.
And it was
It's
fun. It's
it's
fun. It's a
it's
more relaxed
interesting to
way.
see how well people don't know each other until they're in a situation,
Yeah.
with other couples or other people.
That
And
part.
yeah, and in the relationship, oh my God, it is so much fun learning your partner, even
But
after
remember,
years.
the word relationship is anything. So I love going to, let's say, Roll With It Dice Cafe out in Virginia Beach because all they have is just different games. We can go in there and spend all day in there, and I'll learn so much about my kids because what they're just automatically drawn to. I'll sit there, y'all pick a game.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to play this game first and then this game first. We can't decide who goes first. Rock, paper, scissors.
But also that's an amazing way to get to know that you get to see even insecurities that they may have about themselves and how
Mhm.
they even in how they're playing the game. They might
That
get
part.
frustrated and walk away from it because they don't want anybody to see them lose it.
Yeah, and my youngest was like that. He was not a spoiled sport, but like when he was winning, he was super happy, and then he became like a sourpuss. And I'm like, bruh, that it does not work that way. Like you have to be even killed throughout. You had to be a happy winner and a happy loser. You still learn something.
But at the end of
Yes.
the day, that's an opportunity that you have to have a conversation with him separately later. Hey, but I noticed that when you were winning, you were good, and then when you were losing, like it seemed like what were you feeling?
Hmm.
Like what was going on with your heart when like I felt bad. Like I felt like I wasn't, like I felt like everybody else was better than me. How do we
Hmm.
know that that's not something that they're experiencing in a different setting?
Hmm.
And I chuckle because my little one is like that. He has the same kind of Napoleon complex that I have. Like, bruh, he used to say, "Mom, I'm cool until somebody try to pick me up because I'm not little." Like, but you are little. But I get what he was saying. I'm a person. I only want to be picked up when I want to be picked up, and y'all just think because I'm short that you can pick me up, and that's not cool. I was like,
Right.
"Oh, all right, I understand. I'll
Yeah.
ask before I pick you up."
Hmm.
Right. And so that's a thing
Yeah.
that you get an opportunity to kind of have another type of conversation with them and not, in that moment, you may not say anything about it to them in that moment, but it's also not a matter of you trying to embarrass them. That gives you an opportunity in that playful
To
setting.
learn what their boundaries are for us. I don't
Right.
like that
Right.
when people touch me that without asking, and then that can create another mental trauma that you don't even know is happening. It's like, you
Right.
know, some of
Unbeknownst to
my
you.
clients are ticklish. Why are you ticklish right there? Because somebody traumatized them through tickling them in their childhood, and they just still reacting that way. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's it. And conversation is so important. I think one of the things that is important to keep in mind as well is just to be respectful, period, of what people tell you. If
Yeah.
somebody's saying
Mm.
something to you that bothers them, listen to them.
Yes.
That's child or adult. Listen to them. You may
Because
not,
they're sharing with you.
you don't understand. You may not,
Yes.
but understanding is not a requirement for you to respect and honor what they ask you to do.
Hmm. Very good. Very good point.
Ooh, I love that. All right, so I have a twofold question. We're nearing the end of the show. People like to go to sleep because we got things to do in the morning. But one, I'm so happy that you were able to tune in and join this conversation with us,
Me too.
because our opinion is different than your education. Thank you for bringing the education, right? Also, the questions that I have: one, how can we actively engage in community advocacy? I see oftentimes, we have all these wellness fairs where there's somebody there talking about mental health, but it's like they run, they flee. So it's kind of like going to church, right? That's not the way that we're going to get them. How do we get them? How do we engage them in conversation to actually break that or start to tear down those walls with them so that we can talk about mental health, prioritizing, seeking support, engaging in healing practices such as this?
Well, one thing that I think we have to give ourselves credit for is providing the space in the first place. So just because they don't
Mhm,
come in doesn't mean that you haven't sown a seed for them. So you may not
mhm,
see. So sometimes we're looking to sow the seed, water the seed, and watch it grow. What we don't realize sometimes is that, yeah, maybe they did. This is their third mental health fair that they went to this month. But this time they came with the intention that when I leave here, I'm actually going to call a therapist because your presentation of whatever it was that you shared inspired them to actually take the step. So we have to remember that we don't know where people are and keep providing the spaces.
Hmm.
Stay around to talk to people. Don't leave after you present. In the session that I held Saturday, I was able to stay around and talk to some people and actually had some people that are interested in doing therapy because of the presentation that they saw.
Yeah.
So make yourself available to have questions. If you're the person that's presenting or you're the person that's hosting, make sure you stay around. Make
Okay.
sure you did put something in their hand that they can take with them. Maybe it's a stress ball. That stress ball might save their life because they might squeeze that stress ball instead of squeezing
It
somebody's stress.
saved mine once.
that's right.
Just saying.
Definitely. So
So
listen,
those
recap.
yeah, so those are ways that you can make that tangible for people. But we got to remember that these are people that get to make their own choices. Keep providing the resources.
Okay.
I love it. I love it. So, to recap, we wanted to talk about the elephant in the room, which is PTSD, right? We often talk about the Black community and lots of the traumas, as we've been talking about on this show, Fit to Heal, since April, from finances, from physical stress, from mental stress to emotional stress. But the biggest issue is that it's all in your mind in a good way and a bad way, right? So before we close out, I always let everybody on the show tell me who they are, where we can find you. We'll start with our guest first. Go ahead, Fran, and then I'm gonna drop you out. Okay?
All right, cool. Well, again, my name is Fran Futrell. I'm the owner of Your Mental Health Matters. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at YMHMLLC. On both of those social media platforms. You can also find our page on YouTube, Your Mental Health Matters, LLC, spelled all the way out, where you can find helpful content and videos that address different areas of mental wellness and just some empowerment and encouragement. You can visit our website, www.ymhm.org. If you'd like to order the book, the email is listed for you here on the screen, info@ymhm.org, and we'll make sure that you have a copy of your counseling is not a cuss word. So that's how you can stay in contact. And if we're doing events in the community and out, please come and say hello. I'd love to engage with you in person.
Lovely,
Thank you
lovely,
so
lovely.
much for coming. We
That's
enjoyed
right.
you.
Your turn, Mama.
Well, that was Fran Futrell from Your Mental Health Matters, and I'm grateful for her presence today. She's opened our eyes and answered so many of our questions. Um, we work in harmony with some of these local counselors, and what we can't do as life coaches and wellness coaches, we will refer to you to them. We're grateful to have them as a resource. And we are a resource as well. We are Fit to Heal. We are fitness and wellness life coaches, trainers, and we are here for you. I am located at, I am Rosalind, your life coach, and I am at 431 North Main Street in Suffolk, Virginia. And you can book with me a life coach session, reflexology, aromatherapy, even massage at www.alchemicaura.com. I'm grateful for my daughter who's going to close us out. She is the fit goddess of Fit to Heal. And thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate you.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's take her off. The music's coming in. It's time to close the show. Oh my God, guys. That was a phenomenal episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fit to Heal, where we explore the profound impact of intergenerational trauma within the African American community. We hope that our discussion on PTSD caused by traumatic experiences within our homes has shed light onto the unique challenges we face and provided strategies for healing and breaking free from the cycle of trauma. Remember, it's crucial to recognize and address home-induced PTSD for our collective well-being and empowerment. By prioritizing our mental health, seeking support, and engaging in healing practices, we can create safe spaces within our homes and communities. We encourage you to continue the conversation, challenge systematic barriers, and advocate for mental health within the African American community. Together, we can break the cycle of intergenerational trauma, build resilience, and nurture a culture of healing. Thank you so much for being a part of Fit to Heal. Stay strong, stay resilient, and remember that you're not alone in this journey of healing. Until next time, take care of yourselves and one another. Stay tuned. We'll catch you soon. Peace.